The Warfleet brought a new tale. Alien empires scoffed at mention of human might. Enormous ships emerged from hyperspace, ruining dreams. Silence followed. None expected this. In that moment, the galaxy held its breath, and humanity's fury prepared to make everything anew. No one dared blink. Humans were an afterthought to the galaxy. Their planet appeared wretched, their technology primitive. For centuries, they only dealt in simple goods and seldom ventured far from their section. Secure in their own power, alien empires hardly paid attention to human advancement. Yet hushed rumors circulated. Explorers complimented human resilience, our uncanny knack for survival in inhospitable settings. Most shrugged off these tales as irrelevant. And after all, no one reported that humans would be able to compete with the ancient armies that ruled whole constellations. When their conflict over a distant resource world came to blows, the major powers anticipated a swift suppression of humanity. Fleet commanders derided the idea that Earth's forces could challenge advanced star cruisers. Their pride swelled undiluted until the first indication of something abnormal was detected by long-range sensors. A strange energy wave undulated through subspace. Readings were outside the norm, and the signature was human and obvious. Alarmed admirals insisted these spikes could not be right, but data specialists confirmed it. The humans were here, and they had ships bigger than anyone had ever seen. The laugh of disbelief dropped into silence, and with that silence came yet another gigantic human dreadnought flaring out of hyperspace, followed in its wake by a tight formation of heavily militarized battleships. Bold lines of glowing armor implied advanced shielding, while rotating turrets alluded to terrifying firepower. Alien watchers stood stunned. Somehow humanity had built a fleet that broke every expectation. One transmission after another demanded explanation. The humans did not reply. Their smugglers floated eerily motionless, hulls gleaming with absolute confidence. Alien bridges are buzzing with nervous chatter. Some called for instant diplomacy, others pushed for a devastating preemptive strike. Each of the human warships slipped into formation in meticulous tree-off, a silent testament to their discipline and skill. Observers saw the signature work of a well-coordinated navy, not a motley crew of amateurs. Fear whispered through the cosmic corridors. Had humans taken a centuries-long leap ahead in the dark? Admirals from other aliens rushed to adapt tactics. Simulation of tactics ran continually, driving data into strategic computers that only crunched out crisis after crisis. Estimates indicated catastrophic casualties if they opted for direct conflict. The tension escalated, with the final warnings issued: stand down or be destroyed. But the human fleet stayed mute, glistening with voiceless menace. Panic among the ranks of the powers that had once laughed them off. Never had they appeared so unsure, so unprepared. And so, from under the glaring lights of countless command centers, did the greatest militaries the galaxy had ever known shake. Fifth, humanity was here, in full. The adjustments would begin immediately. The hour of battle had come, and every empire realized with dawning horror that this was not going to be the swift conquest of old. The strategist kept watch over thousands of displays, all beneath Earth's surface. This armada was humanity's final hope, a monument to clandestine labs and intensive work. Making use of alien technology scraps mixed with human brilliance, engineers developed massive ships equipped with energy cannons and experimental shields. Fighters flew out from carriers in tight formations, each pilot stealing to protect the delicate future of Earth's colonies. Alien commanders, anticipating scant opposition from the humans, gawked at tactical readouts revealing organized strategy to rival even the best navies in the galaxy. Banks of drones flitted through the void, collecting intelligence and transmitting targeting information. Every alteration in the human fleet's formation was purposeful but random, confounding enemy analysts. Even the greatest empires, centuries proud, felt a shiver of awe as they realized the extent of humanity's effort. Massive siege platforms floated near the main fleet, barren forms said to be carrying planet-destroying superweapons. Spies attempted to decrypt human transmissions, and only jumbled bits appeared. Within aliens, there was confusion, but neither humans nor Sasha's new cohorts were deterred. These ships were not born of great ambition, but of desperation. Earth's meager resources and shadowy satellites threw everything they had toward making unstoppable war machines. And behind the steel was an unyielding spirit. And I think everybody, every engineer, every pilot, they all believed in this mission. There was no turning back. On alien bridges, fear grew, quoting calculations that showed far more humans than initial scans indicated. So did more warships from hidden jump points. Here was a huge fleet. Observers marveled. The product of what a supposedly minor world had wrought against ancient star nations. The civilian communications channels all went quiet days before the battle. The command that rang out across Earth's frequencies was singular: hold the line at all costs. The message resonated across every deck. Crews braced for the unimaginable. They understood the foe was broad and brutal, but retreat would mean extermination. And then the Warfleet moved into a final configuration. Space itself felt like it shook at the raw power coursing through the vessels. The dreadnought, at the head of the fleet, issued nothing more than a short pulse, a message that could not be interpreted, yet caused the formation of vessels to readjust into offensive stance. Desperate alien admirals recalibrated their strategies, but it was too late. Humanity stood on the brink. Past failure, old humiliation, none of that mattered now. And we knew in that moment that every ounce of invention, every shred of courage, had readied us for this final stand. The gargantuan flotilla lay in wait, emboldened by the conviction that even a beleaguered race could rebound with unbridled fury. The order came from the bunker of the strategist. Engines blasted, turrets tracked targets, and the front lines advanced. This was humanity's final hope, now on a collision course with the people who had once insisted they were the weaker species. The last moment of calm vanished as the first fleet prepared for war. No one knew the result, but hope lingered. The die was cast, and a legend was about to roll. The first shot fired with a crackling flash. Swathes of concentrated energy beams from human battleships were hailing down, each impact slamming into the hull of an alien vessel. Strobing flares flooded the darkness, exposing the stark contrast between the flimsy delusions of alien supremacy and the primal fury driving the assault of their human prey. Alien admirals watched in disbelief as entire formations of destroyers were shredded, their shields collapsing under withering fire. They tried to scatter and regroup, but the precision tracking of our fleet left them no place to hide. Missiles, pulse guns, and ion lances battered each target in unencumbered efficiency. Frantic shouts rang out across command decks, alien officers scurrying to keep up. Strategic boards displayed human vessels interweaving in perfect time, creating interlaced firing arcs. The two factors together were catastrophic. Alien lines caved in under a storm of destructive firepower they had never imagined. A Titanus carrier made a last-ditch launch of interceptor craft, yet saw them sputter into blossom of flame. Human strike wings lanced through enemy squadrons, their pilots skilled by both horrific simulations and real-life skirmishes. The smaller ships swarmed around the capital ships, distracting enemies and buying time for the big guns to line up and fire. Alien commanders had seen their proud fleets reduced to scattered pockets, and desperation set in. The unstoppable juggernaut they'd anticipated from their side had crumpled into disarray. Sonic booms charged through the fabric of the universe, each one a riff on human technological prowess that rivaled or exceeded the finest spec alien tech. Some alien warships, after all, fought back viciously. Cathedral-sized dreadnoughts unleashed plasma salvos into the approaching fleet. Pulsing arcs of energy streaked through the void, incinerating the flanks of a half-dozen human battleships. But even those giant explosions couldn't stop the general advance. Humans had constructed layered defenses designed to soak up punishment, and dozens of damaged ships withdrew just to come roaring back with a vengeance. In the eye of the storm, the human flagship deployed a weapon. Every sensor within a range of thousands began to scream with the energy the weapon unleashed. One clear, searing line of light cut through several alien cruisers, neatly splitting them into drift debris. Visibly astonished silence rippled through alien channels at the sight of such power. All the empires that once derided mankind knew these weapons were beyond what they had ever made ready for. The first strike, the tide, was relentless. The alien vessels were attempting to regroup around the heavily fortified command station, betting on fresh reinforcements. But targeting arrays locked on to that station, drawing raw energy into a concentrated hail of blasts. Shield generators flared bright white, then failed, exposing the station's hull to attack. One final volley sliced it in half, hurling molten chunks spiraling out into the void. Civilians and shadowy strategists alike, watching from bunkers on Earth, traced the battle on filtered transmissions. Relief struggled with grim resolve. Now losses were inevitable, but humanity's fleet held firm, the result of many long hours of preparation and an iron will. And they fought, keeping the foot on the throat and refusing to allow the enemy to get even a hint of control back. Previously invincible alien alliances were plunged into chaos. Information from those far-off worlds was knee-jerk filtered. Frantic messages about unstoppable human war vessels shredding their best fleets were all they were getting. Panic mounted as age-old rivalries reared their heads. Who would be next if humanity won out here? Other alien commanders tried to make a fighting retreat, sacrificing entire squadrons to buy time for their escape. In the midst of this chaos, they sent out warnings across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer the weak spectator. The Warfleet's bombardment had only just begun, and the devastation witnessed in these first moments of the assault had the power to break even the stoniest of willows. They blasted as fast as they could, but each minute a dozen alien vessels were destroyed, broken wreckage scattered across the void. And the last messages contained a grim message of their own. The first blow had been humanity's. That fact could not be erased. For the first time, the galaxy witnessed human dominance crystallize in raw, irrefutable presence. When the dust settled for a moment, a tremor of fear coursed through the surviving alien armadas. Their previously invulnerable line had been broken. Human cannons were still hot, and fighters were returning to guns. This was early in the first act of a conflict, but already it had changed the course of history. The alien armada, refusing to back down, took a last, desperate chance. Capital ships deployed from distant warp gates and had always been hidden away as a trump card. Reinforced cruisers and newly armed destroyers streamed in, aiming to surround the human fleet. Swarms of fighter drones swooped in, their numbers staggering. This was the final redoubt of those determined to deny humanity's ascendance. 1,000 new contacts lit up on the human ship sensors. There were alarms on every deck, and the strategists transmitted comm orders. The crew had been trained for this moment. Squadrons of corvettes broke away from the Warfleet's flanks to intercept the freshly detected alien ships. They skimmed along enemy hulls, delivering maximum damage if fired at point-blank range. The rest of the fleet formed a defensive wedge around critical carriers. They synchronized shield harmonics to counter the withering assault. Otherworldly pulses crashed into those limits, leading to brilliant scintillations of light. Some human vessels took hits, buckling under the massive barrage, but their sacrifice bought time dear. Amidst the carnage, alien admirals ordered every one of their cannons to fixate upon the flagship. If they could disable humanity's control center, then maybe chaos would ensue. The torpedoes surged through the vacuum of space, weaving through defensive lines, directed by advanced targeting algorithms. But just as the flagship looked besieged, new sensory phantoms emerged, stealth frigates revealing themselves in a synchronized action. These concealed ships shot the incoming torpedoes at precise angles, beams severing warheads before they could discharge. Explosions detonated harmlessly in the vacuum. Enraged alien gunners attempted to recalibrate, but were hit from behind by flanking human destroyers. The trap had been set. The enemy's all-or-nothing gamble was starting to collapse. Yet the aliens would not crack. They sent waves and waves of reinforcements. To defend against a direct strike, battleships flanked a massive supercarrier, attempting to shield its warheads. Humanity countered with a bold tactic. A group of smaller attack craft baited the enemy to fire with little more than their hulls, snapping them up in a crossfire line for giant warship cannons. In seconds, fat projectiles and lance-like energy beams struck the carrier's defenses and exploded its reactor core in a blinding detonation. With losses into the hundreds of thousands, the alien armies continued to battle on, holding out hope that they could overwhelm the human forces with numbers alone. Human task forces responded with disciplined counterstrikes. interleaving their strikes to break each alien formation. Whether through encrypted comms or otherwise, the strategist orchestrated everyone's movements carefully to ensure that no target made it out unscathed. And then there was the twist no one saw coming. In the command bunker, a specialized team fired up a quantum entanglement device. It unleashed a cascade across hostile sensor grids in the vicinity, leaving alien warships unable to see well or at all. Their carefully timed salvos went haywire, missing entirely or hitting friendly vessels. Exploiting the confusion, humanity's Warfleet advanced. Frigates rushed in and out of alien ranks, bringing chaos. Missile barges smashed dreadnoughts, and combined beam volleys critical structural points. Flagships fell one after another to the assault, cracked hulls shattering into choking debris. The enemy was in the depths of despair. A few admirals ordered kamikaze runs, hoping to at least take out key human assets. But still the Warfleet stood, interceptors and point defenses methodically tearing apart each suicidal charge. Flames burst on alien decks, hulls blew open, crews vented into the cold void. Gradually, the final bastions of defiance recognized the pointlessness of their fight. The grand plan to crush humanity in one great, unstoppable wave had failed. Thinned ranks and battered vessels bobbed about, out of reach of reinforcements or too damaged to fight on. Silence settled on the battlefield, interrupted only by the occasional crackle of static from destroyed comm arrays. But amid the battered alien remnants, grim determination flickered. One could not forget this humiliating loss. Thus fear, accompanied by fury, swore revenge if another opportunity presented itself. The human Warfleet, however, had already set its eyes on the next stage of the fight. And after that desperate gamble, the enemy had been reeling, and final victory was tantalizingly within reach. Recognizing the moment to strike a final blow, humanity's Warfleet picked up speed with fresh fury. Dreadnoughts spun up engines, battleships flared into attack trajectories, and fighter wings flared ahead in a coordinated thrust. Through shattered fields of stars, alien command centers scrambled to regroup, but dread had settled. The leading edge of the Warfleet dove directly on top of the largest concentration of the enemy. Sensors confirmed that alien admirals were making a heap of capital ships around a reinforced command nexus. They would bring down their whole chain of command if that nexus fell. Without a second thought, mankind launched a massive offensive designed to disable the last remnants of alien control in this quadrant. It was a quick and deadly approach. Defensive fire engaged on human corvettes and frigates, letting the heavier vessels close as plasma cannons and railguns thundered, each volley aiming to rend armor and tear hulls. The battered aliens struggled to rally, pouring every asset into shield generators and missile platforms. But the onslaught was too much. Emerald beams of death carved the darkness as entire alien carriers imploded under the combined firepower of humanity's gunners. Detonative shockwaves radiated across adjacent formations, creating rattled crews and dented morale. One alien commander made a desperate hyperspace jump at the last second to muster reserves, but jamming ships disrupted the escape. Caught in the confrontation, that commander's dreadnought tore apart in a conflagration of flame and scarred metal. Back on Earth, nervous observers watched as strategic displays flickered with jubilant updates. Each alien flagship destroyed sent ripples of relief through the besieged empire, but the fighting was still fierce. The Warfleet pressed forward, ship faced sole purpose to ripping apart the Nexus defenses. At the same time, drones flew over debris fields, searching for any evidence of hidden fleets. At last, the last shield wall crumpled around the command nexus. Human bombers swooped in, unleashing precise salvos of warheads that punched through the shield's weakened nodes. A series of detonations tore through the station's superstructure, blowing open control centers and critical systems. Fences of alarm blared across alien channels, but none came to answer them. When the Nexus disassembled, the alien chain of command unraveled. Orders became garbled. In a last-ditch effort, some subcommanders tried to rally their ships, but pockets of vessels were left floating in the void, slain by humanity's pitiless guns. The final blow was at hand. Seizing the moment, the Warfleet's capital ships delivered the heaviest firepower in their arsenals. Siege platforms homed in on priority targets, directing harrowing pulses of energy that turned whole sections of what remained of the fleet into vapor. One by one, the alien warships stuttered and fell before the bombardment. Crew members abandoned ships, scrambling into lifeboats that floated aimlessly through seas of wreckage. It was too much of a spectacle. Ripping lances sheared through the last major pockets of alien resistance, cutting off escape routes and obliterating every bastion. With every explosion in space, it was as if the message rang out. Humanity's war machine was at its zenith, unswayable and unyielding. Following the last blow, silence reigned. Distant distress calls crackled between pockets of static. Smoke and sparks wafted from the battered hulks, where they created a gruesome ceiling over the battlefield. A feeling of awe descended over those who observed from safer distances. Nothing would ever wash away their faces as part of this human epic. In panic, a handful of alien craft slipped into the farthest reaches of their sectors with accounts of the invincible armada. Such accounts, once laughed away as improbable, would today catch like wildfire. The truth would spread through the galaxy to every faction, every empire. Humanity could not be toyed with, nor pushed to the fringes of galactic politics. This last blow had shattered the alien command. The greatest fleets of known space had succumbed to human determination. Cheers erupted across Earth's networks, though tempered by the magnitude of the loss and the scale of battles to come. For the immediate threat was eliminated, but the galaxy was wide, and old wounds would surely be allowed to fester. The Warfleet, though, stayed on alert. Crews evaluated damage, restocked ordnance, and started prepping for the next operation. They were poised to respond to any provocation, plowing ahead with the belief that humanity would never again kneel before those who considered them weak. The battlefield was silent, littered with the debris of shattered armadas. Deformed alien spaceships floated like ghosts beneath dimming emergency floodlights. Scorch marks and melted scars testified to the wrath mankind had released. In the surreal stillness, search and rescue boats scoured the wreckage, collecting data cores and making sonar sweeps in search of survivors. Down on Earth, news anchors aired shaky video of the burning conflict zone. Nervous crowds listened with a blend of relief and dread. They beheld the shattered alien dreadnoughts, flags of once invulnerable empires, reduced to drifting carcasses. It was a triumphant victory, and yet the price paid echoed in every heart. On Allied outposts throughout the stars, cheers broke out. Colonists who had dreaded complete obliteration now ventured to hope for a better tomorrow. Messages of thanks to the Warfleet crackled through the transmission GMS. This time, as a guardian, not a bystander, humanity wielded a power with respect. Inside Warfleet itself, crews labored in an attempt to get critical systems back online. The technicians patched and filled hull breaches, replaced burnout relays, and sealed compromised compartments. They included medics caring for the injured, comforting where they could. The mood was somber but determined. They had rescued humanity's muscle, but the memory of lost brothers hung in the air. At hurriedly convened war councils on distant worlds, terror and incredulity were the order of the day. Those who had formerly derided Earth as a fringe contender now struggled with the aftermath. Tempestuous arguments raged about suing for peace or revenge. Some called to form alliances to oppose humanity's sudden rise. Others murmured of surrender, fearing that a second engagement could lead to total ruin. But amid the shattered fleets of the enemy, strategists, in the corridors of human command, considered the tortured husks of the defeated fleets. Each wreck was a testament to alien hubris, unprepared admirals bested by Earth's resolve. Plans started preparing for a new era of galactic relations, one in which humanity would not be relegated to the margins. Reconstruction efforts would accelerate, warship production would proceed, and diplomatic overtures would happen from a position of unassailable strength. Throughout the cosmos, rumors spread about how swiftly this once mundane species had ascended. Some of them marveled at humankind's resilience. Others plotted how to suppress the threat. Nevertheless, all the living things who gazed upon the carnage knew that the nature of power had changed forever. An officer stepped onto a recovery platform and surveyed the mangled wreckage. Ominously, for all the managing to make history out of avoidance, every thought came tinged with a steely note of caution. Victory over these enemies did not ensure peace forever. The universe was full of ancient powers and hidden dangers. Humanity's war fleet had stunned the galaxy, but to hold on to this sudden new status, vigilance and unity would be everything. On the ground, banners waved and cheers resounded in once frightened streets. The joy was poignant and real, colored by the bittersweet knowledge of sacrifices made. Families grieved fallen heroes, and memorials were organized immediately. For all its power, humanity had also paid a heavy price for the stance it had taken. But even in mourning, pride had set in. They had gazed defiantly down at insurmountable odds and emerged victorious. As the war fleet reformed, its dark silhouettes hovered like sentinels in the star-speckled emptiness. This was only the first act in a larger saga. Each gun, each drive that still thrummed with power a reminder that man, if dare called to cigar, would answer with inflexible heart. The galaxy that had once dismissed that blue planet now knew better. Humanity was no longer an afterthought. In the final transmission sent to every terminal in range, one sentence rang out. The war was far from over, but mankind had pushed itself a crucial step forward. Anyone who had dared cross them again would do well to remember the slaughter they left in the fleet's wake. The age of human demureness was over. From this bloody battleground arose a civilization prepared to shape its own future. And thus, with the unnoticed eye of distant stars upon it, the war-torn sector knew an uneasy peace. The past had been rewritten in a single campaign, and the human star now shone brighter than it ever had. If there was any doubt left, the charred alien wreckage confirmed it. The war fleet had come, and this was just the beginning of the victories.